The CPU consists arithmetic, logic unit, memory unit as well as control unit. Register is a temporary storage unit in a computer system. It stores intermediate data. The number of cycles per second at which the central processing unit of a computer system operates. That is nothing but processor speed, date and time. When you switch on the system, on that time automatically will get the date as well as time. That operation is performed by this BIOS. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysore. Today, we are going to start with the second session of typical configuration of computer system. Whereas in the previous class, you have studied regarding the block diagram of computer. Under that, what do you mean by input device, output device, CPU, then memory devices, then introduction to motherboard. Then with that, the characteristics of motherboard as well as types of motherboard in the previous class. Whereas today you will come to know regarding the components of motherboard. What do you mean by motherboard? Which are the components under that motherboard? On that processor, BIOS, that is basic input output system, then CMOS, that is complementary metal oxide semiconductor, memory and expansion slot, which are the different types of expansion slot, as well as disk controller. Regarding that, on this class, you will come to know. Whereas, when they come on components, on that, the first component is processor. That is nothing but CPU. The CPU is nothing but the main component, the main board or main item in the CPU. Whereas, processor helps to process all the transaction. Then, BIOS, that is basic input output system, CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor, memory and expansion slot, and disk controller, input output ports, bus as well as SMPS, switch mode power supply. These are the few components under motherboard you will have. One by one now we will discuss. The first one is processor, or the processor we use called as CPU. Depending upon the CPU only, nowadays we are classifying the computer. Whereas the CPU is actually main part, brain of the computer. And CPU is the brain of the computer. And all the transaction, all the work, everything, whatever thing in the system we are doing, everything is controlled by the CPU only. The CPU consists arithmetic, logic unit, memory unit as well as control unit. If you come on CPU, major concept arithmetic and logic unit we have, that is arithmetic and logic unit helps to perform arithmetic operation, logical operation as well as relational operation. Then memory unit for storage purpose, it will store input data as well as output information, both whatever data we are giving, that also it will store. After processing, whatever result it generates, that also it will store, as well as control unit, the major components of CPU. Then CPU is also has register also. Whereas register is also a storage unit, but here it stores intermediate data for limited period of time. That means register is a temporary storage unit in a computer system. It stores intermediate data. Then what do you mean by intermediate data? It means that the data which are produced at the processing time, only that type of data it will stored in the register. Then the register is a temporary storage area for holding data and instruction for limited period of time. Intermediate data it will store. Arithmetic and logic unit perform arithmetic operation, logical operation on the data. These are the major things regarding processor. Next, we will discuss about microprocessor. When they come on microprocessor, there the CPU is fabricated as a single integrated circuit chip. Fabricated as a single integrated chip, and it is also known as microprocessor. It is an integrated chip. If you observe this diagram, there you will come to know that it is an integrated chip. All are integrated, all are connected together. Integrated chip, and it is also called as microprocessor. Whereas microprocessor is a multi-purpose programmable device. we can able to give more than one program it contains. Then what do you mean by program? Program is nothing but set of instructions. It will perform the task that accepts digital data as input and produces it according to the instructions stored in the memory. How the user want, on that way it will produce us the information to the user. When you want to identify the processor speed is the number of cycles. It is very important because for 1 marks they used to ask this question. What do you mean by processor speed? The processor speed is nothing but the number of cycles per second at which the central processing unit of a computer operates and it is able to process information. It is the number of how many instructions it will going to execute, the number of cycles per second at which the central processing unit of a computer system operates. That is nothing but processor speed. The processor speed measured in megahertz and is essential to the ability to run applications. Mainly, it is how many instructions per second it will going to execute, especially in central processing. Regarding that, it will tells you processing speed. Next, we have the clock speed. For 1 mark, you may going to get the question, what do you mean by clock speed? The clock speed is the number of instructions can be executed in one cycle. Consider we have one cycle. On that one cycle, how many instructions are executed? That is nothing but clock speed. Clock speed is nothing but the number of instructions that can be executed in one cycle. The clock speed rate is one of several factors that can be influences performance. As much as the clock speed increases, how many instructions are executing. For example, in one cycle, if it is executing more instruction, then the execution speed is also increases here. Now, one by one, we will explain regarding chipset. There is a need to be proper channel. If I want to transfer any data, machine should have some proper channel or media for which an effective and efficient communication between processor and other components we can able to perform. We need proper channel to transfer the data. This task is taken by chipset. How data is transferring, how it is processing, how it is managing, on which way it is going, everything is performed by this chipset. Now, one by one we will discuss. In this chipset, we have north bridge as well as south bridge. If you observe, this is a motherboard. On this motherboard, we have slots, ports. This can be called as slots. And the back side, there is an opening. No, that place we used to call it as ports. And this is the north bridge and this is the south bridge. Then what do you mean by north bridge? North bridge is used to manage data communication. How data it is communicating between the CPU and motherboard. Regarding that, mainly it will deals. It mainly deals on how data is communicating, managing between CPU as well as motherboard. Regarding that, it will take care in this north bridge. Okay. Now, it is responsible for control of high-speed components like CPU, RAM and video cards. This is mainly responsible to control all the transaction which takes place under CPU as well as RAM as well as video cards. But when they come on south bridge, it is similar to north bridge only. It will work in the same way as it is north bridge only. And south bridge components are slower as sound card, net card and hard disk as well as UPS. Okay, this is nothing but south bridge and this is north bridge. Now is it clear? BIOS is nothing but basic input-output system. It is a small chip on the motherboard that holds set of instructions regarding how to transfer the data in input devices, output devices. Mainly it will control both input devices as well as output devices, because basic input-output system, it mainly controls input devices as well as output devices, and here these programs automatically load when we switch on the system. Next, we will discuss about CMOS, that is complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Consider on this motherboard, this is nothing but CMOS. complementary metal oxide semiconductor. The main work of this is to store or to load every time in the memory regarding date and time. When you switch on the system, on that time automatically will get the date as well as time. That operation is performed by this BIOS. Whereas if you switch off the mobile, on that case, after when you switch on the mobile, once again that time automatically it will update it, is it no? That can be performed on this CMOS. When you switch on, when you shut down the system, afterwards whenever you want you will switch on the system. But still the date as well as time automatically it will update. That work is done by this CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. It is loaded every time when you switch on the system. Now is it clear? The next one, slots. Already in the previous class I told you these are the slots where I can able to connect all printed circuits to increase the performance or capabilities of the system. Whereas slot is an opening. You just observe here, here we are opening, here I can able to insert additional devices, additional circuit, especially printed circuits we can able to insert. This helps to perform or to increase the performance of the system. It is the opening on a computer system where you can insert printed circuit boards. We can able to insert printed circuit board. It is also called as expansion slots because this helps to increase the performance capabilities of the system because it allows to expand the capabilities of the system. These are the few expansion slots there we can able to increase the size or capabilities, performance of the system. When they come on different types of slots, under that we have ISA slots. ISA stands for Industry Standard Architecture. These slots are mainly used to connect modem as well as some input devices there we can able to connect. Whereas ISA, Industry Standard Architecture, because in the exam, in part A, for 1 mark, they may want to get the ask or you may want to get the questions. Expand the given expansion or expand the given word like that. ISA, that is Industry Standard Architecture. And the second one, PCI, that is Peripheral Component Interconnect. This is mainly used to connect graphic accelerator cards and sound cards as well as internal modems. To connect that, we need this PCI expansion slot to increase the performance especially. Next one, AGP slots, whereas accelerated graphic port slots. Accelerated graphic, when you come to the graphic means video purpose. When I want to increase the pixels on the monitor or to visual display, on that time we are using this AGP slots, accelerated graphic ports. It is used for designing, for attaching a video card to a computer system to assist in computer graphic purpose. To increase the video quality, we need this particular slots, whereas accelerated graphic port slots. The next one is RAM slots. RAM means memory. To increase the memory, we need this RAM slot to install additional memory. Then we need this RAM slot. Next one, processor slot. Whereas this processor slot helps to insert processor chip. Especially to insert the processor chip, we need this slots. Already I told you these are the few slots there we can able to insert additional devices or printed circuit boards. Whereas these are the slots. On this, we have this ISA slots, that is Industry Standard Architecture, PCI Peripheral Component Interconnector, Accelerated Graphic Port, RAM slots, processor slot, and the next one is PCI Expansion slot. This is used to attachment of hardware components such as network card, modems as well as sound card. To connect this, we need PCI expansion slot, Peripheral Component Interconnect Expansion slot. And the next one is PC card. This is mainly used in laptops for Wi-Fi cards as well as network card as well as external modem. For that purpose, we need this PC cards. Next, when you come on disk controller, on that the name itself tell you controller. Here it helps to control both hard disk as well as floppy disk. Whereas disk controller is a circuit which enables the CPU to communicate with hard disk as well as floppy disk and other kind of disk drives. Helps to mainly control the hard disk as well as floppy disk. We need this disk controller. Then what do you mean by hard disk controller? That is HDC. HDC stands for hard disk controller. When we come on disk controller, two types. One is hard disk and one more is floppy disk controller. Whereas hard disk controller interface that enables the computer to read and write the information to the hard disk drive. This helps to perform read and write operation on the hard disk. Next we have floppy disk controller, that is FDC. Floppy disk controller. This is an interface that directs and controls reading and writing to a computer's floppy disk drive. If I want to read or write in a floppy disk, then we need this floppy disk controller. Now is it clear? Next, one by one, all the things, whatever thing in this class we explained. Once again, I am to recall all the things. When we come on components, there we have processor, BIOS, complementary metal oxide, memory expansion slot, disk controller, input-output ports, interface, bus as well as SMPS, that is switch mode power supply. Then processor is the main part of the computer. It contains arithmetic and logic unit as well as memory unit as well as control unit. Whereas microprocessor is a single integrated circuit chip, helps to perform the operation. Whereas microprocessor is nothing but it is a multi-purpose programmable device. Whereas processor speed is nothing but the number of cycles per second at which central processing unit of a computer operates. Then clock speed is nothing but the number of instructions can be executed in one cycle. Chipset, proper channel where we can able to transfer the data. When we come on chipset, there we have north bridge as well as south bridge. Whereas basic input-output system helps to store the information regarding input devices as well as output devices. Automatically it will work. It will reload the program when we switch on the system. Whereas complementary metal oxide semiconductor system, it is also contains some information regarding date and time. When we switch on the system, automatically it will reload all the information regarding date as well as time. Then the slots is nothing but opening in a motherboard. There we can able to insert the printed circuit boards. When they come on types, ISA, industry standard architecture, PCI, peripheral component interconnect, EGP, accelerated graphic port, RAM for memory purpose, processor to increase the performance, processing speed, PCI, expansion slot to attach additional hard disk and all, PC cards regarding to insert or use it in laptop for Wi-Fi connection. Whereas disk controller helps to control the disk like hard disk as well as floppy disk. Whereas hard disk controller helps to control read and write operation in the hard disk. Floppy disk controller helps to control the operation, especially read and write in the floppy disk drive. Next class, we will meet with the remaining concept of the same chapter. Thank you for all of you.